Welcome to the Tarryn Reeves Show, where your journey to empowerment takes center stage. I'm your host, Tarryn Reeves, best-selling author and publishing expert. Together, we'll dive into the hearts and minds of visionaries, disruptors, and trailblazing leaders to explore the most compelling and thought-provoking ideas in life, business, and marketing. Let's inspire, impact, and ignite. This is the Tarryn Reeves Show. Welcome. Today I'm joined by Connor Inch, who happens to be on the same large island of Australia as me. Connor is a British-born entrepreneur, though, who's now living in Western Australia with his amazing wife, 2 kids, and a flock of 4 quirky chickens. With a dynamic career spanning multiple industries, Connor has founded and run diverse businesses, from health and fitness coaching to a topless waitering agency. Can't wait to dive into that one. However, his true expertise lies in direct response marketing, copywriting, and content creation. Over the past 5 years, Connor has worked with some of the world's most recognized brands, helping them increase revenue through impactful marketing strategies. Beyond his hands-on work, Connor has coached over 100 aspiring marketers and business owners, sharing his knowledge of marketing, copywriting, and content strategy. Now, though, he's the founder of the Done For You video podcast service, empowering business owners, coaches, and experts to create high-quality podcasts that generate leads, boost sales conversions, and establish authority in their industries. Connor, welcome.
Hello, thank you for the introduction. I do have a sad update though. The flock has reduced by 1, unfortunately.
What happened?
I don't know. That's just chickens for you. They get all sorts of illnesses.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, on the plus side, all the other chickens get a lot more attention. So,
well, that is true. R.I.P. chicken, or chook, as we say here in Australia. Now, Connor, you've had a really interesting kind of career path, as I find the majority of entrepreneurs do. A lot of us appear to be accidental entrepreneurs. So you used to run a health and fitness business, and then you started a topless waitering agency. How did these kind of entrepreneurial ventures, if you like, shape your journey to where you are now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess you pick up skill sets from each of the little ventures that you try. There's one recurring theme, which I only kind of recognized upon reflection, and that's spotting opportunities. So with the topless waitering, for example, I spotted an opportunity. I spotted a gap in the market. I lived in a rural mining town in the middle of nowhere, and there was lots of skimpies. So for people that aren't in Australia, that's topless females that would go to the bars and all of that stuff, but there's nothing for the women. And I was in good shape. I was very shy, but I was in good shape. Hit the gym. I had some friends in the gym, and I started a topless waitering agency because I saw the opportunity, right? And it's the same with the health and fitness brand. There wasn't many PTs in this place. So I saw an opportunity and I took it. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing, recurring theme throughout the whole journey.
Yeah, amazing. And that's such a vital skill set to have as an entrepreneur, to be able to spot opportunity or a hole in the market and then develop something to fill it. That's within your skill set, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or if it's not within your skill set, to make it within your skill set. I had no idea how to take my clothes off in front of women for money, but I spoke to people that did know how to do it and learned from them. And then I learned the skills that I needed to fulfill and give a good service.
I'd be very curious to know what that market research looked like exactly.
Yeah, I won't go into the nitty gritty details of it, but it was an interesting time in my life, that's for sure.
Indeed. Well, from all the women in those mining towns, thank you for thinking of them and developing something for the ladies. Now, you used to live in the UK. It's a world that's vastly different. I'm from Africa, which was obviously colonized by the British. A vastly different world to Australia. It's a big change. What inspired the move? When did you move?
Yeah, 2013. Well, 11 years. So I spent most of my life in the UK, but just over a decade in Australia. I had been laid off from a job in the UK. So I was going through a bit of a recession, a sales job. I was working full-time as a bouncer in nightclubs, which is not a career. It was all right money. I was working 5-6 nights a week. It's not a career. And I'd just been dumped by my girlfriend at the time as well. My brother called me up and said, "Why don't you come to Australia?" I was like, "Oh, I haven't really got the money." He's like, "I'll buy you a ticket." I was like, "Okay, cool." And 6 weeks later, I was on a plane, came to Australia. So it's very much an impulse decision, nothing much going on for me. So I thought I'll come out here, work in the mines for a bit and then go traveling. That was the plan, which never happened because I stayed here.
Yeah, wow. Okay. Your brother, for one, sounds like a stand-up guy, buying you a ticket. I know my sister would never buy me a ticket to anything like that. So that's amazing. And how do you think that living here in Australia has influenced you? Personally, I guess, but mostly professionally, because I know you and I have had this discussion that Australians tend to spend money very, very differently to the Americans, for an example.
Yes, they're better than the UK though. I would say that there is, and you might have seen this as well, and this is not to shit on Australians at all. My wife and my kids are Australian, but there's so much opportunity here, and the
Mm.
Australians don't always see it because they've been surrounded by it. So coming from the UK, where there's perhaps less, not saying it's an impoverished country by any means, but
Yeah.
to come from the UK to Australia is a big difference, the amount of opportunity. Now, to what you said about the Australians perhaps not spending as easily as like Americans do, well, the solution to that is I mainly work with Americans.
Mm.
I do
Yeah.
work with Aussies, but then the Aussies and the Kiwis that I work with generally are in like masterminds run by Americans, so they're exposed to that different side. It's not like I'm not working with B2C, I'm working B2B, so it's a slightly different sophistication level there.
Yeah, definitely. It is always something that, as an Australian entrepreneur, I've always run into issues with trying to get that fine balance between serving the various markets, including the UK and Europe. It is a juggle for those of us who are doing global business. The questions arise like, do you charge in US dollars? Who do you have to charge tax to? What forms do they need to fill out? It gets really complex, but we won't go into all that boring stuff because nobody really wants to talk tax, right? I want to go back to talking about your chickens because I love chickens. I grow a lot of my own food and I know that you do too. So, being a dad, being a husband, being an entrepreneur, being a chicken keeper, if you like, to three chickie chews, how do you juggle it all? How do you juggle family life with running a business?
I'll give a very honest answer here. Very honest. I think a lot of people will relate to. I don't know. Now, if I strip back the layers a little bit and I give a bit more of an intelligent answer, I've had to figure a lot of stuff out over the years. And I've had a lot of coaches, not a lot, but I've had some coaches and some mentors that have helped me with that side of things. To go on a slight transgression here, I got diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, but I don't scream and shout about it because I think a lot of people wear that as an identity or use it as an excuse. I just like to know, hey, that's how my brain works. So here's how we can operate slightly differently within the operating system that I've been given. The number one thing that helps me, honestly, is pen and paper.
Mm.
And in my mind, trying to have, you can't be strict with working hours as an entrepreneur. I don't believe anyway, if you have anything beyond a personal brand, if you run an agency, for example, but trying your best to say at 5 p.m. or 4 p.m., I'm stopping, or on this day, I'm going to pick up the kids or walk them to school and just have that extra time with them. And then maximizing the weekends where possible. So I used to be very guilty of working on the weekends. And now if I work on the weekend, it's like an hour or two max on a Saturday. And then the rest of the weekend is very intentional with the time I spend with family. I don't know. How do you do it?
Same answer as you. You don't. That illusion, I think, especially when your kids are younger. So I have a 1-year-old and I have an 8-year-old. And then I've got 3 bonus kitties on top of that. It's all crazy over here. And of course, this week we've all had viruses and various things. So babysitters are down, daycares are out. I'm juggling it pretty much on my own while my partner goes to a traditional job. And the answer is there is no balance. You have to be very intentional about what you do and when you do it and how long you spend on each of those things. So, for example, I did 2 hours in Harvey's nap time this morning, and I only got back on to talk to you here at 4 p.m. So really, I've done a 3-hour workday today, and that's as good as it's going to get, because after we hop off our call, I've got to go and cook the dinner. For those of you who are interested, we are having Japanese. And then I've got to take the laundry off the line. Then I've get the kitties bathed and ready for school the next day. So it's just a juggle, and you have to, the way that I like to see it, because I'm a workaholic, if left unsupervised, I will sit at this desk all day, every day, because I love what I do. But I think that you have to be aware of the season of life that you're in and the season of life that your kids are in, and go, well, Harvey's not going to be one forever. He's going to go to preschool, and then he's going to go to full day school and things like that. So I'll have more time down the road. But right now, I rely heavily on my team to deliver the services that we do.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I think it's very important, like you said, to being aware of the stage of life. That's always in the back of my mind. And also understanding that and communicating with your partner as well. If they're not, like my wife is also in a traditional job, which she enjoys that, right? She just doesn't have the entrepreneurial spirit at all. And that's fine. But communicating with her that, hey, look, it's going to be really busy for the next couple of weeks because I've got this thing going on. But then afterwards, it's going to lead to this. And then I guess what I used to be guilty of, if I look back, is saying that, but then always saying it and never actually having that time off. Whereas now I'm very much like, okay, it's been 2 weeks now. I've got to take my foot off the gas and be a bit more present. So I think a lot of people will relate to that. That it's not, they talk about work-life balance. And yes, you do have that in the day-to-day, but you're going to have periods where you have less of it and periods where you have more. It's very much up and down.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly right. Now, let's talk about marketing, copywriting, all of those things, because I think your business and mine cross over a lot like that. Now, you're now doing Done For You podcasting, which is kind of a birth child, if you like, of all of these different skill sets. But let's jump back to when you were working with some major household brands in marketing and copywriting. I'm interested to hear, because I love stories, obviously. So can you share like a standout success story where your marketing and copywriting really supported a business to stand out from the competition, and what made it work so well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got tons that I can pull out. First one that springs to mind is working with a brand called the 4% Club, which doesn't exist anymore. They've moved on to other stuff. But they were working with women with thyroid issues, coaching them, helping them with their nutrition, their symptom management and lifestyle, a little bit of exercise, but it wasn't like a workout program as such, working with dietitians, nutritionists. And I essentially helped them rebrand into the 4% Club, wrote all the copy, all the assets, kind of created this whole thing, this offer with them. And they went from, one of the stats they gave us, I think, was they went from like 100K a week to 250K a week.
Wow,
Just with
so
this
more
new.
than doubled.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. More than doubled. And it was all because we changed the positioning. So it was no longer thyroid. It was speaking to women over 50 and all the symptoms they had post, during, pre-menopause, and really getting into how that's showing up in their day-to-day life and building the offer around that. So I didn't have a lot to go off of. I just knew what they were doing to help those women. And then it's kind of just creating the messaging around that. And that's one of the success stories. And I think if I can give anyone advice on how a big part of the process to creating that was really immersing myself in a 50-year-old woman's world. I used to joke that I spend more time writing as a 50-year-old woman than anything. And I did that for multiple companies as well. That kind of became what I was good at, was writing as that woman. Just immersed myself in that world. I joined all the forums incognito. I joined all the Facebook groups. And one of the really big things I did was actually listen to the sales calls that these people were having with the avatar. And this was before AI could transcribe it, or if I wanted it transcribed, I had to pay rev.com $50 or whatever to get it transcribed. So I just used to listen to it. And often these women would get emotional, and I'd listen to those pain points, those struggles, what they've tried and what the salesperson was saying to kind of push them over the line. And it's just taking that and putting it into words and into the ads and into the sales page and all of that stuff. So that's one of the standout ones.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. I'm curious, why the 4% Club? What did the 4% stand for?
4%, only 4% of people who diet keep their weight off after 1 year. So anyone who loses weight on a diet, only 4% will actually keep it off long term.
Wow, that is a shocking statistic, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and we leverage the hell out of that statistic as well, in the ads. Especially New Year, like 96% of the women around you are going to fail the diet they start today. That kind of thing, So
yeah, that would have been marketing gold.
Yeah,
have
it's that.
You been a storyteller, Connor? Like, have you always been good at like writing, telling stories, and listening to others?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I was a massive bookworm. I think you know that. I think that's where the question's coming from. I saw the little grin on your face. Yeah. Not so much verbally. I've never been a particularly good like verbal storyteller. You get those people that go on stage and they captivate you with their stories. That's not me, at least not yet. Maybe it will be in the future. But I've always been a massive book nerd. I mean, I grew up reading books. That was my place to escape. And yeah, fantasy is my genre of choice.
Oh, that's so interesting. You know what? I am so impressed with the movement that's happening in the book market at the moment, because I have never been a fantasy reader. I don't even really like to watch it on TV. I've always been like a no nonsense, straight down the road, nonfiction. Like, if you're not teaching me something, then it's not worth my time, kind of thing. Then along comes Sarah J. Maas with A Court of Thorns and Roses and that series, and I am done.
Yeah.
And it's
Brilliant.
so interesting to see how the marketplace is now rising to meet that demand, because she appears to have thrown open the door to a lot of people like me who wouldn't have usually read fantasy. And now I went into Target yesterday, which is, for those of you who are not in Australia, like one of our homeware stores, if you like. And there's all this merchandise for all of this fantasy, and like everything's just fantasy books now. And I'm like, how impressive to be able to capture a market like that and really expand it out. What do you think would be the secret sauce to that, if you like? What do you think is the marketing strategy that's gone on there? Just to put you on the spot, seeing as you haven't studied it.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. I don't know. I think a good author to study on how to get your books a good following is a guy called Brandon Sanderson.
Okay.
I think leveraging social media, a lot of them leverage social media, being a good author. As I'm saying, it's just going to come back to marketing, isn't it? It's going to be knowing your audience. Who are you trying to write for? And then getting
Yeah.
it in front of them. That's the main thing. Perhaps they're leveraging Reddit and forums like that. Maybe it's just happened completely organically. Maybe they just wrote a really good book and that's it. It's just that book. I don't know, the one you're the ones you're talking about. There could be 10, 15 years old, that series,
Yeah.
and they might only be getting recognized now.
Yeah.
That's often the way.
Yeah, exactly. When somebody is wanting to do market research, because that's really the foundation of it all. And I made this mistake when I first started out in business, and I did it multiple times because, quite frankly, I find market research incredibly boring. I like to get onto the big visionary stuff, right? But it is so important to build that foundation of knowing who you are selling for, who you are creating offers for, because your business is not for you. It is to create the lifestyle that you want, but your business is not for you. It's to serve whoever it is you're showing up to serve. And in order to serve them correctly and make money, you have to know very, very, very intimately who you're selling for. Where would somebody, I was going to say begin to start, but let's say they've been in business for a while and they've realized that, hey, they actually need to go back and do this properly now, like I did a couple of years ago. Where would they even start? What's some practical, actionable steps you can give us?
It's a tricky question because on face of it, it seems simple, but there's a few different ways you can approach it. If you're just trying to find out how to speak to your market, then it's doing what I said earlier, going and immersing yourself in that market. If it's finding out, making your offer more compelling to the right people. So here's an example, right? I could have based my podcast offer purely around just getting get more leads with the podcast, right? But you got to think about, well, what does my ideal client want? They probably don't necessarily want more leads. My ideal client is, say, 7 to 8 figure business owners. They're already at a certain level. Lead flow probably isn't their problem. Lead flow is probably a problem of like a 6 figure business owner, which isn't really my target market. So it's thinking about what are the problems that my target market actually has. And that may involve you reflecting on sales calls, might involve you jumping on sales calls and think about why did I fail that? It might involve you speaking to business owners. But it's really, I think for some people, it's quite intuitive as well. For me, it is, but the intuition might just come from years of doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But really trying to uncover, well, what do they really want? So for me, a lot of the stuff I focus on is using the podcast as an asset to nurture leads that you already have. So a lot of these guys I'm working with are spending 6 figures a month on ads, some 7. How can they reclaim more leads?
Yeah.
Well, they can use podcasts to nurture their leads. How can they get their sales team to convert more and keep their pipeline full? They can use their podcast to do that. So I'm speaking to the problems that my ideal client has. So you take your ideal client and you reverse engineer the problems that they have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. It does. And I like that you said that it is quite intuitive. So even though I spent 9 months doing market research, eventually, I literally spent 9 months while I was pregnant with my son doing market research and rebranding the business very intentionally, because my previous brand, like, it even comes down to branding. It's not just the copywriting, like the colors you use, the logo, the name of your company, it all ties in together. And then there's obviously that copywriting piece that comes in, was just attracting the wrong people for me, the wrong people for me and my business that I didn't enjoy working with. And so, yeah, even though I spent 9 months doing all the things that you just mentioned, a lot of it is intuitive and going, well, let's actually sit down and think about this, even though it may not be sound so fun. You do have to trust and then be willing to adjust as well and change it. And like you said, go, why did I fail that? Or why did I not convert on that call? And going back and going, it was this wording, or I wasn't listening to them, that sort of thing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, a lot of the answers to our problems are like we already have the answers, we just don't see them. They're in
Yeah.
front of us. But yeah, just to clarify for anyone who's just listened to that last bit, just I think the easiest way to explain it is reverse engineer what your ideal client wants and build your service, or reposition your messaging around that. You don't necessarily have to change your service, but you can reposition the messaging to attract that person.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you've coached a lot of people on marketing and copywriting. What is one or two pieces of advice that you find yourself constantly saying over and over and over?
WIFM, WIIFM, stands for what's in it for me. Every single person that I've ever coached has had that feedback from me. They'll just see that acronym on their marketing material, their copy, their branding, whatever it is. Like, I'm looking at this page as your potential prospect, as your potential lead, potential customer. What is in it for me? Like, you're not showing me any benefit of your service or any benefit of me reading this piece of text or any benefit to me taking this action. It's everything you do, what's in it for me? From your ad to your sales page to even if you're doing cold emailing and cold outreach, or you're sending letters in the mail to try and get clients, put yourself in that person's shoes and think, what's in it for me with every single thing that you create and you write. That would be the number one. The next thing as well is probably, it kind of ties in with that, but it's taking the benefit of the benefit. I think that's a really big thing that people don't do enough. Most people know about features and benefits, and if you don't, then you need to, because no one's interested that they get podcast clip an episode from us every week. They're interested that they get a podcast done for them every week to save them X amount of hours a month to use as a sales asset, to, whatever the benefit is of that.
Yeah.
And then the benefit of that. So a simple way to extract those benefits is just using the word "so you can." And also that ties in as well, what I said as well about attracting the right people and reverse engineering everything. When you're in your messaging and you're stating the feature, whatever it is, just constantly go through this exercise where you're saying, "so you can," blah, 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 "so you can," blah, 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 and just strip it right down, go through, as far as you can with how this shows up. Eventually you end up with something random like, "so you can spend more time with your kids and be a present parent," or whatever it is. And that all starts from the fact that they get one email written for them a week or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously you don't want to,
Like a giant Witham tree.
yeah, that's it. You don't want to be that absurd, right? You're not going to do that in your actual copy, but it's just good for you to know, and it's a good exercise to do.
Yeah. And it can, really, really make it clear to be able to drill down that far, because you never know how long you're going to be on that sales call for, if you like, and have to break it down and down and down and down. So knowing that intimately is important. Now, let's talk about podcasting, because it's kind of your jam at the moment. Podcasting has gone mental in recent years. Everybody's listening to podcasts. A lot of entrepreneurs are getting podcasts, or not getting podcasts, starting podcasts, speaking on podcasts. Why video? What do you think makes video podcasts compared to audio podcasts especially powerful for entrepreneurs and business owners?
Yeah. So first of all, I think audio podcasts are great. So if you're just doing an audio podcast, that's fine. I think you are leaving a lot on the table if you're not doing video though. And the reason, so there's this psychological phenomenon called the parasocial relationship. And that's the simplest way to explain it is like celebrity stalkers, right? It's where someone feels like they know someone, they love them, they've got a relationship with them. That's the parasocial relationship. That's the extreme end of it, right? By having video, you can kind of leverage that principle and get people to feel like they know you, like you, and trust you, and they have a relationship with you. I'd say more on a more amplified scale than just audio alone, because they're seeing your face, they're seeing the human side, they're getting to know you as a person. And it just leverages that kind of psychological side a bit more. And also it's how people consume things as well. More and more people are going onto YouTube to consume stuff. It's a growing platform as audio, it's not dying by any means, but it decreases. That's the trend, right? Especially if we go into the TikTok generation and all of that stuff as well.
Yeah, I am a bad TikTok scroller. When I'm on a website, I don't go on there to actually educate myself. I literally go on there to give my brain a little holiday.
Yeah, doom scroll.
Yeah, doom scroll. Let's talk marketing then when it comes to platforms like YouTube and video podcasts. If someone is doing a video podcast, they then have to go and get SEO and all that other stuff to make sure that, and then like a designer, so that their YouTube thumbnails all fancy and their metadata is right, and there's calls to actions that are leading into funnels, all the things.
Ideally, yeah. It depends. Do they want to seize the most opportunities they can? But on a side note, just because you're doing that stuff doesn't mean you're going to go viral and turn into Mr. Beast, right? There's plenty of people doing good stuff, but I think giving your brand every shot you can, every potential opportunity you can, and also creating something that represents the quality of your brand, which is especially important for the people we work with, right? We're not working with freelancers where they can just hop on as a low quality Zoom call with their budget webcam, terrible mic, and just record something. People will watch it, right? That's where they are. But if you're a more established company and you're trying to sell something for $10,000 or $5,000, then I think a little bit of care and like the design, the words you use, the branding, I think that matters. And that's coming from someone in the direct response world, right? The branding side matters. Absolutely.
Yeah, it 100% does. You've got a well-branded, well-designed YouTube thumbnail next to one that isn't, or you're going to click on the one that's psychologically, visually more appealing, because we're humans and that's how we operate. Now, it sounds like that it could be quite a expensive endeavor, both in time and money, to do a video podcast. But I do believe that you can do it on a budget. What's your opinion?
Yeah, you can do it on a budget. Absolutely. I don't believe it'll be the best quality if you're doing it on a really tight budget. So for the reasons I just said, it depends on where you're at in business. To kind of contradict myself a little bit, something is better than nothing.
Yes.
I very much am a person, I'm very much a ready, fire, aim person, right? So my website's rubbish, things like that, very much ready, fire, aim. But when you're in a position to improve things, absolutely you should get a better camera, upgrade your artwork, whatever it might be, one step at a time. You don't have to have everything perfect from the go. But like my setup, I've got a reasonable camera, I got 2 lights, I got my background's fairly nice.
Yep.
I invested a little bit of money in this, but nothing crazy, but it just adds, it elevates it versus if I was coming in with like my inbuilt laptop webcam, which looks terrible. And I had an old Kmart bookcase that was falling apart, which is what I used to have, which is why I say that
Look,
in the background.
we've all been there. We've all been there. That's right. You start where you're at and grow from there, right? And I do think that video is a very, very powerful tool in business to help connect and advance that or accelerate that know, like, trust factor that it takes somebody to buy from you.
Yeah.
Now, your service focuses on creating podcasts that help business owners attract leads, improve conversions, establish authority. What do you think is the key to achieving those outcomes through a podcast specifically?
Yeah. So it goes back to what I've already spoke about with the previous stuff we were speaking about, and that's knowing your audience's problems. So you as the podcast host, you need to know what your audience is struggling with or what their aspirations are, what is interesting to them, what they want, and then building your content around that. So I sit down with my clients and we map that out. Sometimes we get up to a year's worth of planned episodes, loosely planned episodes based on that. What I find with most people when I talk to them is they know it's in there. All the stuff they need to talk about in their podcast episodes is in there. It's just having someone to talk with like me to get it out of them. And yes, building around that. So I actually encourage people to do a mixture of guested episodes like we're doing now. You got a guest on, right? You got me on, and then a solo episodes. And the solo episodes is where you really get to speak directly to the person, your ideal avatar, and give them something useful, show that you're the solution to their problems, fix a problem, whatever it is. And then the guested ones, you are doing a few things. You're bringing value to your audience with a guest who has some insights maybe outside of your circle of expertise or that complement your circle of expertise.
Yeah.
You can lean on their authority and credibility, especially if you have a high profile guest. It's a foot in the door. So if you've got someone who you want to become a client, it's a much lower ask to ask them to come on the podcast and talk about themselves like I'm doing now for 45 minutes or an hour than it is to attend a boring sales meeting where you're just going to pitch them. It's a foot in the door, right? It's the start of that relationship. And the other thing as well, and this might be useful to you or your listeners, is there's opportunities in guested episodes for you to still establish your credibility, right? So when I'm saying something about podcasting and how it establishes credibility, then your next question could be something like, yeah, I've really found that with my clients when we're helping them with their book marketing, like I just helped a lady last week and she sold 1,000 copies. You start with that and then you go into your question. So there's still opportunities for you to establish your credibility while still making it about the guest.
I love that you brought that up because it's actually hilarious because I was like, I'm listening to you and I'm obviously as the host, I've got to think of, okay, well, where are we leading this conversation? The time, what time are we doing? So we're respecting everybody's time. And my next question was going to be talking about establishing credibility. What do you think about books as establishing credibility for people? So yeah, you're 100% right that the podcasts that we do solo episodes here at the Tarryn Reeves Show, they're a lot shorter because simply my ADHD brain just will not.
How they should be.
Yeah, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes is usually what I do, little book power bites, if you like. Right. And then my guests ones are usually about 45 minutes. But you do get to leverage their audience because you'll share it to your audience. And then people who might not know me will follow along on the podcast and then develop that know, like, trust factor. Then they'll see my face on video if it's a video podcast and along we go, right? But back to my question, and I know you don't have a book under your belt yet, but I know that eventually you will. What is your opinion on using books to establish credibility?
I think they're really, really good. So a good friend of mine is also in the book marketing world. And I know you're doing great stuff for your clients as well. I think they're so powerful. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on here. Like I've expressed this to my friend as well. I think there's so much, especially for people, I think, who have established brands, have established expertise, personal brands. There's so much power to them because it's similar to the podcast. You get to build know, like, trust. You get to know the personality if you've done it right. You can insert call to actions like you do have in a podcast. Not only that, you'll know this from, marketing 101 is the easiest person to sell to is someone who's already bought something from you. So if someone's bought a book from you, they might not buy from you for another year or two, but they're still a potential buyer in the future and it's going to be so much easier to sell to them. I think there's so much value in that side of things. It's a low barrier commitment, but you've now got potentially building up a list of buyers, of ideal clients who are attracted to your exact messaging and what you do, because that's the title of your book and that's the promise you've made. So big believer in book marketing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And when done correctly, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of nonfiction books on the market by entrepreneurs, and they've just left so much on the table because there's no calls to action. Yeah. They just kind of like going, here's some stuff. And then it's like, have a nice day by the end of it. And I'm like, but I don't know, like, and then you go to their website, especially if it's a personal brand. And I'm talking about some of the big names out there. I've gone, oh, well, I really like to learn more. So I've gone to their website and I've been like, well, is there a course for me to do? Is there
Yeah.
something? Is there a free download? And there's like nothing. It's crickets. I'm like, well, then the book's going on the shelf to gather dust, or it's going to the library or whatever. I'm like, why? Why would you do that? So there is a very specific way, just like a podcast, that you walk your ideal client from A to B and then invite into that next level to accelerate that know, like, trust factor.
Absolutely.
Podcasting and getting vulnerable and showing your face, sharing your message. People think you have to be, especially with a video podcast, and especially women, they're like, oh, well, I have to do my hair and I have to do my makeup. That is not true. You'll see in some of my video podcasts that I look like an absolute mess. Like, literal mess. I mean, come on, my life as a mum, Harvey's pulling out my hair and then I've got to hop on a podcast. What would you say to someone who's nervous about starting a podcast, especially a video podcast? How do they overcome that fear of speaking to camera or looking perfect or just being behind the mic?
Yeah, definitely something people worry about. So my previous business, I actually did reels, done for you reels, and we recorded with them. So I saw firsthand how terrified people are of being on camera like that. Absolutely terrified. It's up there with public speaking, and people would rather die and be killed than do public speaking. So just to give you the kind of perspective on how terrified people are of being on camera, it matters because it matters to them. But once they've done a couple of videos, they soon realize it doesn't matter. That's the thing. You've got to get them out of the way. People watching this now are probably watching you, Tarryn, and they think, she's really confident on camera. It's easy for her. I guarantee your first ever video was shit.
I guarantee some of my videos now are shit.
Yeah, same here. Same. I look at videos I shot a year ago and I'm like, oh, that's cringy. And I think that's just a sign of growth. But you've got to do it. I don't want to, I hate that saying man up. I think it's a pretty toxic saying, but you've got to bite the bullet and you just got to do it. And hey, record your first one. And if you don't put it out to the world, that's fine. Delete it. But just get it done. And I think what I advise my clients, a few of them, they're all really successful business owners, but a few of them have been a little bit nervous about getting on podcasts.
Yeah.
To the people that we're launching, we work with people that already have a podcast as well, but people we're launching, what I've advised them to do is they get a guest on for their first episode. And that guest is someone they know really well, like a business friend they've had for like 5-6 years that they can talk to. Just get that first episode done. Whether we post it or not, I don't know. We'll see. And then for the solo episodes, it's just picking the easiest topic, something they can talk about very easily and not worrying. I think a mistake I made, I'll hold my hands up to this, when I first started this business, was giving people a structure to follow on the podcast and trying to really drill in that you need to follow this structure. But actually now I'm a lot more like, just come in and just talk about what you want to talk about. We'll worry about the structure once you've got a few episodes under your belt and you're comfortable talking to camera, and we'll dial in that structure, to hook people in, to keep their attention, to get their curiosity. We'll worry about all of that later. For now, I just want to get you on and talking and getting used to speaking. And you'll probably be like this and you'll have wide eyes and you'll be staring or you'll be looking down like that. And that's fine. Like, we've all done it. Yeah, literally.
People always say to me, oh, I can't believe that you've spoken on stage in Vegas and your face has been in New York Times Square billboards. And I'm like, and my daughter, she's so funny. She goes to school. She goes, my mum's famous. I'm like, darling, no, mummy is not. Mummy's just mummy, because that's how I see myself, right? Go, oh, how do you do it? And I'm like, I do it scared. That's how I do it. Like, I am shitting myself 90% of the time in business. Like, and I hate videos. Yes, I've spoken on big stages, and every time my palms are sweating, my hands are shaking. I'm like, oh my God, somebody kill me now. Why did I ever decide to do this? This is a terrible idea. And yet somehow I make it up onto that stage, right? My legs are shaking like a little newborn foal. But this weird thing happens once you start speaking. And oh my gosh, I will never forget my first speaking event on stage. You know what the first word out of my mouth was?
Go on.
Motherfucker. I was like, why? Why, Tarryn? And there was like a part of me going, don't say that. Don't say that. And then I was like, bleh, and I was like, oh my gosh. But I was being me, right? And I think that's the permission you have to give yourself, is it doesn't matter what your competitors are doing or how they're showing up online. If you're showing up authentic to you, that is the easiest pathway to take, because some people are going to hate you. Some people hate me online. That's cool. I probably don't like them anyway, but but more people like you. Yeah, it's going to happen. The more visible you get. But just like that guy says in The Hangover, it's like, yeah, but did you die? It's like, no.
Yeah, it's true. I will say what you're saying about being authentically you is true as well, right? Don't try and be someone else. And for the love of God, don't go into TV presenter mode or customer service, telephone voice mode. Like, just be who you are. Like, hey, welcome to my show. Like, if that's not you, if that is you, then that's fine. But like, there's one lady who we work with, her podcast, and she's super loud and excited, and that's her natural personality, and people love it. like that attracts people that love that energy, and that's not put on, that's genuine. Whereas if that was forced and genuine, then it would just repel people. But because you can tell, it just is almost, it's charismatic in a way. Like she's so charismatic when she speaks and so excited that it works.
Yeah.
But if you're reserved and shy and you start doing that, then it's going to be a complete disaster for you. Like if I did that, started clapping and like doing that Tony Robbins stuff. Oh God,
my gosh. Yes, it would be weird. But
Yeah.
for those people who it's authentically true to, it works. It just seems to work. So as long as you can give yourself permission to be all the parts of you, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of the bits. Like I give myself permission to show up and do podcasts when I don't have makeup on, because that is how my day has run, and it is what it is, people. Like, sorry.
And that's going to resonate with your audience if that's
100%.
your audience is.
That's right. But some people will say, oh my gosh, your brand is quite polished and high end. How can you show up with no makeup on? I'm like, well, because it's real life for me. And that's authentic for me. Now, let's have a bit of fun. As someone with such a eclectic background as yours, what's a skill or talent you have that most people wouldn't guess that you have?
I can tailor my clothes to a reasonable level.
You can tailor your own clothes?
Yeah, to a reasonable level. I'm not like a professional tailor, but I can take in shirts, t-shirts, pants.
Interesting. Where did you learn that skill? Because a lot of, this is going to sound really sexist, and I am sorry, but where did you learn that skill? Because not a lot of men know how to sew. Not a lot of women these days know how to sew.
Well, my first sewing I learned probably my very, very brief stint in the military in the UK. Essential sewing, but tailoring was just on YouTube. So the reason why was because I used to be quite muscular, and when you are shopping for clothes for muscular people, like broad shoulders, like I'm not like that anymore, but it's all made for larger people, like larger bellies, larger abdomens, so to fit your shoulders. So I'd have these t-shirts, they fit great here, but then they'd be baggy out here for like a really large person. So I was just like, I'm sick of this, like, and I couldn't afford to buy expensive high-end clothes for people that are in shape or whatever. So I just went on YouTube and stumbled on this guy's videos, and then I just started obsessively consuming the videos and going along and buying stuff from the op shop to practice my tailoring on. That's how it started. And now it's just like, okay, cool, I got a t-shirt, but it's a bit baggy around here, or the sleeves are too long. That's cool, I'll just take it in. It takes me like 10 minutes.
That's awesome. I love that. What a great skill to have. I hope you're teaching your kids, because somewhere down the line, we might need that. Now, finish this sentence. If I weren't an entrepreneur, I'd probably be?
I bet everyone says in jail or a drug dealer.
I was going to say a tailor for you. But
Tailor, yeah.
Tailor.
I bet everyone, all blokes who you have on the podcast will say they'd be in jail or a drug dealer. What would I be? That's actually really, I'd probably be, if I didn't worry about money, I'd be a zookeeper.
Oh, amazing. That's pretty cool. I grew up wanting to be a safari guide coming from Africa. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, nice.
Now, Connor, I have loved chatting to you. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Tarryn Reeves Show. We have a tradition on the podcast called the book drop. We want to know what book, or maybe you've got two, has impacted you either personally or professionally that you can recommend our viewers and listeners to get their hands on.
Yes.
And if you don't play mine, I'm kicking you off. No, I'm just joking.
This changed all the time. So there's one, I can't remember who the author is. I don't know if it's up there. I can't remember the author, but it's called Addicted to the Monkey Mind. And this is like, the last name is Benoit or Ben Boy, something like that. Addicted to the Monkey Mind. I think that was a really good personal development book for understanding how your brain works, why you react the way you react to certain situations, and how to, it just really brought awareness to me of how I react in business, but also in my personal life, and improving that, which I think is really important, right? If you're running on like a brain that's constantly like reactive and stressed and all of that stuff, knee-jerk reactions, for example, I actually did a post about that the other day. It's just chaos. It's complete chaos, and it's not a healthy way to operate. So if you can bring awareness to that and then start working on it, and that book was really kind of like the gateway for me of awareness of certain personality traits I had that I didn't particularly like. That really benefited me. There's not many books where you can say it's actually profound. Like I've read a ton of self-help books, and they're all good. You get some good tips, but that was genuinely profound for me. Then I would say it's in the background there. Persuasion by Robert Cialdini is always a good book for marketing and psychology and all of that stuff. And Persuasion really ties in with podcasting and also book marketing. You're persuading people on you, your services, the higher ticket thing that you have. So that'd be my two recommendations: Addicted to the Monkey Mind and Persuasion, though. Like I said, it changes. You ask me next week, I'll probably still recommend Addicted to the Monkey Mind, but the other one will change.
The other one might change. So then we'll definitely be adding that to the library of recommendations that our guests have, which I purely ask for selfish reasons so that I can add to my to be read pile in case I ever have 790 years to do absolutely nothing and read all of the books on my to be read pile. Connor, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. For those of you looking to connect with Connor and get your video podcast started, the guy helps you with a year's worth of content. That in itself is gold. I will put his connection details inside the show notes. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next episode.
That's a wrap on today's episode. If you love the insights and inspiration, don't let it end here. Hit subscribe to stay connected and turn your visions into reality alongside our community of changemakers. I'm Tarryn Reeves. Thank you for joining me. And remember, your story has power. See you in the next episode.